do it live.
All right, here we are in the lounge.
Here we are in the lounge.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well.
What's the mask? I know we're doing.
You know what? The watching 28 years later has made me kind of thrown me right back into the world of the pandemic. So no, in truth, I'm about to go on a long planned, expensive vacation. And so I'm taking massive precautions.
Because he's worried about us being infected.
Yep.
I'm an infected one.
I'm worried that Ralph has been infected and that he's going to
definitely
scum my
infected,
plans.
but not by. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're doing the 5. But it's not
5.
normal.
No, it's a different one.
Because we're going to do one film. We're going to do a spoiler discussion about 28 years later. 28 years later.
Doing that all
and we're going to do 5 basically headings.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about 5 different things. We've got them. We picked the 5 we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say this. The reviews on this movie have been divisive.
Very.
Completely divisive. People.
Very hot and cold.
Hot and hate and love. I mean, it's unbelievable.
One or the other.
And I'm just going to spoil it right now. I think we both loved it. You loved it. You told me the last one we did.
I was shocked at how moved I was by it.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way.
Well, we'll get into that because I think some of that stuff that maybe you were moved by did not impress other people. And we don't have to, I don't care about talking about other people, but I'm just saying it's interesting, the reviews that I was watching. Now, I had never seen 28 Days Later. I had never seen 28 Weeks Later until I decided to go see this movie. So I watched them in the order of 28 Days Later. Then I watched this one 28 years later, and then I watched the middle one 28 weeks later.
Yeah, and that's really the way to do it.
I don't know if that's because you think this is more... Well, the other one's a direct sequel to...
Yeah,
why is that order... You think that order worked?
Oh, no, I mean to say this. So I saw all of them in the theater.
Okay.
And 28 Days Later came out before Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead was 2004.
Right. Those two together really revived the zombie genre, even though they never used the word zombie in 28 Days Later. The reason, what I just mean by that is I thought 28 Weeks Later was a good sequel to 28 Days Later. I thought it was different. I thought the things that they did were smart. I liked it. It wasn't as good as the other ones. But I guess what I would say is that you could skip 28 Weeks Later. And not lose anything. But I really feel like you needed to see 28 Days.
Oh, you had to see 28 Days.
Yeah.
I mean, something had to set the whole thing up.
Yeah, because that really sets the table.
Yeah, 28 weeks, the tone, we'll talk about tone in this one too, but the tone in that one was completely, obviously, different director. Still produced by...
Yeah, it's not like those guys were
he directed, from what I understand,
it.
he directed that first scene too, parts of that first scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the scene where they're like barricaded in the house?
The house scene, which is the one scene that everybody thought this one was going to be. This is the interesting thing as I've been talking to people at work who did not, I'm not going to say hate, but definitely were disappointed in this.
Sure.
They brought up the fact that based on the trailer they saw, which is a good trailer, brilliant trailer with that poem and all that,
terrific,
that they were going to see more of what happened in the second one, more chaos. They wanted more chaos.
Yep.
And what they got was not what they expected.
Well, I think one of the big things is that the first act of this film, right, even almost really the first half of the film, is what people thought they were going to get, Sort of, yeah, yeah. And I think what happens then is the movie, and we're going to talk about this, the movie shifts tone pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
But still remains terrifying, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then really takes on a very different vibe in the last act.
Right. Which is what I think tore some people up. Okay, so we'll talk.
I think they were just, I think it's one of those things where I think they were. Do we just want to jump into our headings?
Talk about the play. Just give a quick synopsis of the film, and then we'll get into our 5.
Yeah, so the quick synopsis is, okay, here's the situation. Basically, the infected have figured out ways to live. Some of them are eating worms. The
virus is mutated.
Yes, it has mutated. So now you have certain... what they call alphas. You have some people that it's like mutated them into these giant steroid monsters.
Well, supposedly they drop that line, and I don't know what steroids are, but I hear that they make people stronger,
exactly,
and that this thing mutated into that. So you have the crawlers, which are eating worms on the ground.
Yeah, and one of the key things they do,
they're like big,
they're like really slow,
big slugs. And
so what happens is, but one of the things is in the opening text. So at the end of 28 Weeks Later, we see some of the infected head to Paris. In Paris, in the underground, coming out of the underground. they very quickly say, hey, guess what? They were able to throw it off the mainland continent. So they go ahead and they say, yes, this happened, but we were able to stop it. So once again, we are back with England is the only place that has been infected, and there is a cordon of ships.
NATO.
NATO ships around it.
Surrounding it, making sure nobody gets off the island.
Nobody gets off, and nobody gets in.
Okay.
So anyway, so basically we have this one small community that's really kind of coolly set up. There is a causeway that at low tide you can walk across. I guess the infected aren't very good swimmers, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's a natural boundary. So they're constantly watching it, and it's a
and they're low tech. Yeah, there's no technology.
It's very low tech, but at the same time, they're not completely without understanding.
Well,
they know enough to make beer.
Well, yes, and some of those people were around before the 28 years later thing. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody born within that would not have experienced that. So someone made a decision somewhere that we're only going to use bows and arrows. I guess that's all they could get their hands on. Whatever.
Well, I mean, it's at some point.
So, and it's a working, capable community.
Yeah, you're going to.
Everybody's pitching in.
Yeah, it's a very communistic.
But it's stuck in the. It's stuck. There's a picture of Queen Elizabeth. It's sort of stuck in a time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But there's a young boy who's like 12, 13, and he is the main character, and his father is taking him on his first mission to the mainland.
It's part of the initiation for young people. I don't know if it's boys and girls or just boys, but they go out and kill their first infected.
Right.
They have a big celebration if they come back. Because if they don't come back, nobody goes and looks for them. They set that up right at the beginning.
It's a wonderful way that they do it, too, by making him kind of our stand-in for the audience because he's young. You know, like the town elders stop him at the gate and kind of basically break it down and say, hey, if you don't make it back, there are no rescue parties. Do you accept this, basically? Because they even say he's a bit young for this. Usually
he's only 14. 12. Yeah.
And usually they say it's
but
like 14 or 15.
But his father's pushing him pretty hard. Yeah. This guy, Jamie Taylor. I'm not going to get the actor's name.
To make things worse, the boy's mother is
bedridden
with
and something's wrong.
Something's wrong. We don't know what.
Don't know what. Yeah. One theory was she could be slightly infected, but they don't know. Nobody knows anything.
Well, because that's part of the thing from the second one. We know that, which actually makes sense because they set up the quarantine.
Yeah.
Because we know from the second one then that there were some people
there are carriers who don't have the symptoms,
but don't have the thing.
That was all. That's how two broke down right there. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he's got the father who's taking him out. He's got the mother bedridden.
Yep. And the first act is so terrifying because what naturally happens is they go out. They're not able to get back to the causeway before high tide, so they have to spend the night on the island. They see some slug people, these fat, super
the ones that eating worms off the ground. But they're not starving.
Yeah, and then they run into a group that is obviously commanded to a certain extent by this guy who's an alpha.
He's tall,
super
big schlong.
Yeah, just a giant dick on this guy. Yeah. Just a huge guy, right?
And he seems to be controlling the others.
He is definitely in charge.
And seems like he has control of animals. It's weird.
Yeah, there's stuff going on. There's some strange stuff. Yeah. But basically, and I'm just going to throw this out here from a movie making standpoint, the thing I felt and noticed when I was watching this film, the sound design, and they did a great job in it in 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
The sound design gets under your skin and just ratchets up the tension without even having a lot going on.
Same guy that did that movie about the concentration camp that just came out. I can't think of the name of it right now. Where they live next door to the concentration camp.
Same.
He won the Oscar for that. Same guy did this one.
Really?
Yes.
I did not realize that. Yeah, I know the movie. It's slipping my mind right now, but I know the one you're talking about. Right. What happens is they make it back.
Barely.
Alpha
chases him down.
Chases him across the causeway.
Yep.
And it's full of tension, but they finally bring him down. The Alpha, that is. And then we see kind of what happens with the boy is the boy's faith in his dad is shaken.
Well, again... one of the things we're going to talk about is the reason that this happens. The father basically, he finds out his father's a boastful liar and is actually cheating on his mother.
Yeah.
And he has a change. He changes his attitude towards his dad. He basically pushes his dad away.
Yep.
And then, we mentioned the mother's sick and he can't figure out why
nobody's
doing it. There's no doctors. But as they were on the other side the night before, they see a fire. Mm-hmm. Nobody's telling them who's in that fire. What's
Right.
that fire there for? Civilization? How can there be a fire there? Well, it turns out some uncle or somebody who knew the mother says, "Oh, that's Doc." I forget his name.
doctor, a real doctor.
A real doctor who was a doctor in my practice, and when all this went down, kind of went crazy. He turned into a crazy. They say he was crazy.
They say he's crazy.
And Spike's like, well, if he's a real doctor, why aren't we taking our mother over there to get her fixed? Father's saying we can't do it, blah, blah, blah. Right. He leaves and takes his mother with him.
He escapes with his mom.
He sets a fire to escape.
Yeah. He basically distracts the watchers.
Right, so he can go through the gate.
So he and his mother escape across the causeway and through the gate. And they start a harrowing journey to get to this guy, this doctor.
Right.
And it includes them running into some poor, unlucky dudes.
They ran into a bunch of people. They eventually run into the doctor. Yep. They eventually run into a soldier, a pregnant, infected person.
Yeah.
And another alpha who basically seems to be the father of that baby, which is very strange, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's Act 1, Act 2, and then Act 3 takes a whole another.
Takes a very different turn.
You forgot to mention at the beginning, they show the scene where when the first infection happened from 28 days.
28 days later.
28 days later, a bunch of kids watching Teletubbies.
Oh God.
One of them named Jimmy. Who escapes the carnage that happens because they all get attacked while they're watching Teletubbies. There's blood splashing on the TV, and this Jimmy goes to his father, who's a vicar. Father's gone crazy. Says this is the rapture. Basically, these are my people. He gets torn apart. Jimmy, before he gets torn apart, he hands Jimmy a cross. It says faith is what you need to. It's going to save you. Okay, so we don't see Jimmy at all. We see references to somebody named Jimmy throughout the whole movie.
References to Jimmy.
And then Jimmy pops up at the end.
Yeah, at the very end. Which is honestly, it's my only knock on this film.
Oh my God. I don't have a knock on it at all.
Okay.
I loved it. All right, so anybody that knows this is a spoiler discussion has seen the film. So we don't have to we just did
basically what happens is he gets to the doctor, who's played by Ralph Fiennes fantastically, by the way. And while he's definitely a little off kilter, he's hardly crazy.
No.
Like he's no crazier than you would expect anybody who's lived
he's
for
building the bone thing.
He's basically building a kind of a monument to the people who have
all
died.
People. Everyone. Not just infected, but everybody.
But everyone.
Everybody has a story. Everybody had a brain at one point. Everybody had a mouth. They talk their stories, and he's memorializing that.
Everything.
I forget what the
memento mori.
There you go.
Is the Latin phrase.
The Latin phrase he was using.
And it is a very. You get there, and it is a very. It becomes a somewhat philosophical look at memory and death. And
mostly death.
Yeah, mostly death.
And he diagnoses her with cancer, and then immediately euthanizes.
Yeah. Well, he says simply, quite frankly,
you're not going to last that long.
I cannot help you.
Right.
35 years ago, with modern technology, he's basically like, you have cancer.
But before he had done that, they discovered a pregnant.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Infected person. Woman. They birthed that baby.
She gives birth to the baby.
Supposedly the baby's healthy.
Completely.
Spike and the mother take the baby.
Yep.
He gets euthanized. Now she gets euthanized. So now Spike is left with the baby.
Yep.
Spike puts it in a Moses basket, basically, and brings it back to the gate.
Takes it all the way back to the gate.
Leaves it at the gate, and then heads back.
Exactly.
And he's on his own, and he's going to discover whatever he's going to discover on his own. And that's when we meet
Jimmy,
the new Jimmys,
and his tracksuit boys.
Those are all Jimmys. They're in the credits as all Jimmys.
Oh, really?
And they're dressed as Jimmy Savile, the British guy who got, after he had been a famous, TV host, was a pedophile. That's Jimmy Savile.
Really?
Yes.
I've heard of this guy.
And they were stuck in there.
Jimmy will fix it. That was like his thing.
And Jimmy will fix it. But in this world, he hadn't been discovered as a pedophile yet.
Interesting.
So these Jimmys are not only like Power Rangers and dressed like Power Rangers and flipping around like Power Rangers, they're dressed as Jimmy Savile.
Wow.
Because at that time, that's all they remember. It was Arrested Development. They were stuck in that time.
They're all like tracksuit.
And it seems like they're going to be in a sequel,
which is
along with Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, apparently there's already been 2.
The father. Yeah, well, they were shooting the sequel, The Bone. It's not The Bone Garden. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, something like that.
They already shot that. They shot that while they were shooting this one.
Real? Oh, okay.
If he can get the money, he wants to do a third one. He's going to see how the second one goes. No, he's not directing the second one. It's being directed by somebody else.
Interesting.
But Spike will be coming back probably. The Jimmys definitely will be coming back. Yeah. Ralph Fiennes will be coming back. And Jamie, the father, is somehow going to be involved because you see him screaming, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" Even though he had been gone for a long time. And so there's the film. But it's gotten a lot of hate out there.
It is.
Like you said, hot and cold. If you love it, you love it. So we're going to do our 5 just segments about what we liked about the film.
Sounds great.
Okay. So number 1 is cinematography. I'm just going to start with the technical one on this one. You mentioned the audio mix. I mean, that's an amazing... and like I said, the guy won the Oscar for that last film he did. Cinematography also, same guy did the first movie. And we know about the first movie because it was all shot with video cameras.
Yeah.
He came out of the 95, I forget what that thing where they decided to only shoot
Dogma 95.
Dogma 95. They were only going to shoot with natural light, with consumer video cameras. And that's what they did in the first one. That's what gave it its distinctive look. Yeah,
a couple of those movies that starred Björk from Iceland, the singer.
There's a lot of people came out of that 95. So the same guy did this one. Now, flash forward, how many years was that? How many? 20,
close to 20,
23
maybe
years.
A little over 20.
Now he's shooting. This is all iPhones. A lot of iPhones.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of video.
They're doing because they could stick these iPhones in places. Obviously, you couldn't stick a big camera. Not to mention some of that cool 3D sort of jumpy stuff that they were doing as arrows were going through things because they were doing these giant ring contraptions that would shoot 20-something iPhones at the same time so you could get wrapped around. Visually, it was I thought it was beautiful. You talk about using the iPhone to shoot wide landscapes, beautiful Scottish landscapes they're shooting, sunsets. The alphas coming up over the hills, all the infected with the alphas coming up. That scene we're talking about on the causeway where they're running across,
terrific,
with the water, and as they're splashing, it's phosphorescent. It's like you're seeing their tracks.
Yeah,
I thought it was gorgeous. And the color palette was just
the
saturated.
movie looks fantastic. Yeah. It has there is some grittiness to it, but I think that actually lends itself to the film and the story it's telling.
The first one was all grit.
Well, yeah, it's not a super glossy. This is not a super glossy story. It's not meant to be.
No.
So I think that grittiness that's in there, kind of that, lower gloss.
Well, again, they're competing with their first film, right? Yeah. I mean, that set the tone. The second one was more shaky cam and more traditional kind of.
Yeah, I think that was it. It wasn't Paul Greengrass that did the second film, but it always felt like him.
I mean that sort of idea. And this one, you had some beautiful shots. I mean, they really shot that last scene with the winding roads when the infected are coming to attack Spike is just and obviously when the Jimmys start jumping around, their colored tracksuits were awesome.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to give cinematography high ratings on this one.
I think fantastic. It looks great. Yeah, it fits with the story. It's one of those things where it really does. And what I also liked about it wasn't super in your face. Like it worked. Everything seemed natural.
Yeah, I've heard some complaints that the editing seems a little staccato and, some of that stop frame stuff they did as arrows were going in. I mean, but again, overall, and when an iPhone shoots the way it shoots, it gets a little bit of fuzziness on the edges, but what's in the middle is completely sharp and gorgeous. Sure. And I think they really captured, again, they're in the Scottish landscape.
Yeah.
Just
some of those
fantastic.
Islands off the.
So that's number one, cinematography. 2, you mentioned it earlier, tone shifts.
Yeah. So I think that's what really is killing a lot of people.
I think so too.
It starts out flat out, balls to the wall, action.
Well, and a relationship with a dad and a boy.
Yeah.
Like a coming of age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is, it's the first act is stunning, right? It's edge of your seat, nail biting. And here's the thing, I think what happens here in a lot of these kinds of movies, because we see this in these kinds of movies all the time. They establish the community.
Right.
They establish their safety things.
It's like the village.
The walls,
the
harpoons, all the weapons, right? They establish all of this stuff. In the vast majority of films like this, there comes a point, usually in the climax, where the village is put to the test.
Right.
The village is not tested at all in this film. Their shit's working.
Yeah.
Their defenses are working.
Were you expecting that was going to happen?
I
that
did.
they were going to be overrun?
I thought at some
and
point.
then you got the chaos that everybody has been clamoring for.
Yeah, and it's
I'm not saying that won't happen in the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That may be something down the road.
Yeah.
But I think what happened was you go from this super intense action first act. The second act has plenty of action in it because there's about a dozen, were they Norwegian or Swedish or whatever? They're Scandinavian soldiers that unfortunately these poor guys get shipwrecked.
Yeah.
And what they let you know is when it's a whole great sequence too, because what this soldier lets the kid know is basically once you're here, you're here. They're not letting you back out.
Yeah. Once you step your toe on this, you can't
you're
come
done.
back.
You can't come out. And so what happens is that he's talking to the kid about all these modern things.
It's the clunky exposition. Hey, this is an iPhone. It was funny with the picture of his girlfriend with the lips and the joke about the
collagen in the lips. He's like, there's a girl in my village
allergic to shellfish.
When she eats shellfish, her lips do that.
That was a good way to get in the fact that, hey, there's still stuff going on out there.
Yeah, the rest of the world is still together.
Functioning.
And so, of course, eventually this guy gets quite literally his head ripped off.
Well, I know. And that was super predictable.
We knew he wasn't
But he was funny. I thought I thought his addition was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and so we go to
But I knew he was a goner.
Yeah, and so the second act is a travel sequence. We're traveling across land to get to...
With a boy and his mother.
Yeah, a boy and his mom. And now, so it's shifted because, it's now shifted. So...
Well, let's explain. The thing about the boy and the dad is he literally shoved his dad and said, I'm done.
Yeah.
You lied to me.
Because first off, but it's more than just the lie about his dad is having an affair with another woman, right? It's also that he's like, his dad made up all these stories
about me killing 6 foot. Meanwhile, he was shooting just the slugs that were laying on the ground.
Yeah, and he couldn't. He was so nervous he couldn't hit any. He couldn't kill any of the actually infected that were charging him. His dad did all the work, but his dad made it out like he was this monster hero.
But again, it's a kid opening up his eyes to his dad. Oh, my dad's,
his fallibility.
I've heard dads who told their kids they were cowboys their whole lives, and they find out, my dad was never a cowboy. My dad never did this. So it starts boy and his dad. He pushes the dad out of the way.
Yep.
Second part is he goes on this trip with his mother.
Yeah.
To hopefully cure him. That's where they bump into Ralph Fiennes.
Yep.
Who's the crazy, not so crazy doctor who, as we explained, is taking all the skulls and making monuments.
He's literally boiling down the bodies.
Right. And stripping them all
of the flesh and just taking the skulls, and he's building this huge
giant
memorial.
Right.
Memorial to the people.
It's on the poster.
And that's the huge bone tower we see, or skull tower really.
Right.
With some other bones thrown in. And so he really talks a lot about, death and things like that, and how his mother she's not going to get killed by the infected, but she was going to die.
Painfully.
Painfully.
And she didn't want that.
No.
Yeah.
No, who would?
But it's this whole, I think someone mentioned this with Alex Garland. It's she dies, but the baby's born. It's like one for one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a theme in what he does. I've seen Civil War. I can't think of other movies I've seen with Alex Garland. I haven't seen Civil War. Yeah.
It's good.
It's pretty good. He's thematically doing some things in it. Well, that's so. Number 5 we had here was Swedish Soldier: Price of Isolation.
Oh yeah.
We'll just jump to that one.
Okay, yeah.
Because you mentioned that with Eric coming on board, the whole Brexit idea that England has been isolated.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of vibe of that in this movie. And obviously I'm not British. I'm not living through Brexit, but I know that for a lot of people over there, Brexit has not been the amazing economic windfall that they thought it was going to be.
Right.
And that they're literally isolating themselves, and the characters in the film have, fallen far behind when they run into somebody like Eric, who's, a modern man, who's got an iPhone and who has this stuff, while they're still, isolated on their little
and it's funny to see Spike, who's never seen any of that. I mean, the big deal that the father found in the house was a Frisbee, and he didn't even know what a Frisbee was.
Yeah.
So seeing an iPhone, you'd think his mind would be freaking blown.
His mind would have exploded, right?
But it didn't really.
Yeah.
But
he had probably been told stories of television and music and TV and movies.
Maybe. I wonder, because one of the things we're going to talk about is lies.
Yeah.
But as far as the isolation, why wouldn't they just logically nuke the site?
This is what I don't understand. If the infection is so infectious
dangerous.
and so thank you, and dangerous is the better word. If the infection is so dangerous, I mean, we all love England and Scotland too, and Wales.
Obviously, it's a movie, so.
But we all love it, right? But you would think that maybe it's time to just go in there and wipe it out once and for all, because they've already seen a case. Because they, like I said, they mentioned in the opening crawl, essentially, that it got to the mainland Europe once, but they were able to beat it back, right? Which obviously Danny Boyle chose to do that because he wanted to keep everything in England, right? But if you had that close call once, you would think they'd be like, okay, guys, we just have to carpet bomb this place. Right. If we don't want to use nuclear weapons because of fallout and stuff like that, but let's just go in there and we just have to reduce this place to rubble.
Right. But they don't.
Yeah, or at least figure out a way
in
to
this movie they
gas
don't.
them. Yeah, for whatever reason they don't do it, and they say, okay, we're gonna set a cordon around it. We're gonna set up a blockade, and if anybody tries to get, because I think they even at one point the dad mentions like people used to try to get out,
right,
and then they got blown up. Yeah. Basically, they got blown.
It's kind of like Escape from New York.
Yeah.
If you think about
when you try to cross the Hudson,
or the alligator Alcatraz down there in Florida. You know what I mean? They're doing that down there. So if we just take away the fact that logically, yes, they probably would just nuke this thing or blow it up without nukes. They don't do that. So it is a story about people who are trying to survive this thing.
Yep.
And he's whittled it down to, 28 weeks later was whittled down to basically one family.
Yeah.
Who essentially caused the major outbreak ultimately.
Yeah.
Is what happened. So he's whittled this down to, a son and his father, then the son's relationship with the mother, and now the son's relationship out there with the Jimmies now. He's going to be part of that crew. And I think you're right. The Brexit thing was really on their minds. And to keep this a completely English kind of story, especially if you add in Jimmy Savile and stuff that American,
we're not going to get, because
we're not going to figure it out. There's so much of that, and they had, like I said, Queen Elizabeth was still up on the thing.
Yeah.
All right, so the other one, number 3, I had is just Ralph Fiennes. I mean, come on, dude walks into a movie.
It's
good. Something about him lately, that elevates whatever he walks into now. It's insane.
He's a fantastic.
He's always been a good actor.
He's always been a great actor, but like, there's something about his weight, his gravitas. I know, but just the way that the way he plays this character as being so calm and so dedicated, but at the same time accepting, because there's a sequence where he almost gets killed by one of the alphas. He jumps into basically like a
he's down hole. He's down in a hole with Spike.
And locks the thing over him, hopefully to hide. The alpha literally punches through the ground and is jerking him up and down. And what's his name? Stabs the alpha
with the chemicals. Oh, that's the other question. Yeah, but Ralph Fiennes, there's a scene where he darts.
Yes.
So the big alpha's chasing Spike and his mother.
Yeah.
It's when they first meet Ralph Fiennes. So he darts him and says, okay, I got whatever the medical cocktail he did. It's going to put him to sleep for a while, standing up.
Yeah.
We need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comments I'm watching and seeing and people saying is, why not just chop his head off and kill him? And I don't know, my only answer is he's a doctor and thou shalt not do any harm or something, or he's developed some kind of weird, not fascination, but appreciation, or be able to coexist with them. He's got the iodine all over him, which I guess...
He said that helps keep
them away from that. Keep them away from him.
Yeah, but it also apparently helps... it kills whatever the virus is. He helps. It says it basically, because remember, the virus is in the blood.
Yeah.
So if you get splattered and it gets in your eyes or your mouth, you're finished.
Right.
Or an open cut or anything like that. But he said that seems to
slow it down or something.
Kill it or something like that it doesn't like it. So basically, if he keeps himself covered in iodine, it is a level of safety and protection that he has. But yeah, he doesn't kill that guy because I think that he has... And this is some of the things that he's talking about. He still sees them as people.
Right. Well, that's clear he's doing that.
That he believes
that he sees them as people.
He sees them as people.
They had a history.
Yes.
These aren't just
mindless killing machines that he can exterminate like...
Right. And he looks like Colonel Kurtz. Right?
Yes.
The bald head and the iodine all over him and just his manner. And it's just Ralph Fiennes. Like have you seen The Menu?
No.
You got to see the menu.
I've seen
and I just
one
saw him
scene,
in something else. He's doing a lot now.
Yeah, he's
and he just walks on the screen and it's like, boom, movie star. He's doing it again.
I know. It's crazy.
Amazing. So that was Ralph Fiennes pops up. I kind of felt, as I was watching it, I like when he popped up. Mm-hmm. I like when Eric popped up. Yes. I like those little breaks. There was a little bit of humor in both of those. Both of those brought some humor to the show, to the movie.
It's definitely... Well, I think you need that in there because the setting is so grim.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I mean, there isn't. Yeah, it's brutal. But so anyway, Ralph Fiennes, 100% amazing. All right, the last one, and this is, I'll let you explain this one because this is pretty good. Our number 4, we've already done The Price of Isolation. Yeah. Lies told throughout.
Yeah.
And it starts with...
Well, it starts with, it starts with the dad, right? And he is... And the funny thing is at the beginning of the movie, you really feel like he's a good dad. I
thought he was going to get him in trouble. I thought he was overboard.
Right.
I mean, the fact that he brought a 12-year-old out,
right,
and was just putting him in those situations. I mean, those were some harrowing situations.
But
so
I
didn't have that. I didn't think he was a great dad.
See, I thought he was a pretty good dad. He may be a pusher of a dad, but he's making sure he had the bacon. Oh, I ate mine already. He didn't eat the bacon. He saved it for him.
He was,
in some ways he's like, he
was a flawed human being.
Yes. But
because he was cheating on his wife.
Yeah, he was cheating on his wife, but
she was bedridden.
She was bedridden and obviously was having a lot of mental spells due to the fact that she's dying of cancer, which is never good, but when you're completely out of it, because at first we don't know if she's actually sick, or if she's just had some kind of trauma and break because she's lived in this horrific world for 28 years, right? That's enough to make anybody crack.
Yeah, and she had memories as a child, too. Yeah. So that's the other interest. Some of these people were...
And she was probably the same way because she's probably in her mid-30s, I would say.
Yeah, probably.
So,
so I understand looking at him going, oh, what a great dad, teaching him how to hunt and all that. And he was very protective. I'm not saying he wasn't.
This is what you're going to have to do. But what it comes back to is he tells the lies to everybody about his son, right? And hey, I'm a father. I can see where you do that. Maybe you pump the kid up a little bit. You want him to feel good about the experience, But then he's also he's cheating on the kid's mom, and that obviously, as a 12-year-old, he hasn't quite understood the being as an adult man, and kind of he's like, hey, you're married to my mom. You're married to my mom. You don't mess with anything else, right?
Very black and white.
Despite what the situation may be. So he sees that, but it's also the additional the lie that he tells about Ralph Fiennes. I can never remember the character's name. Kessler or something
Kessler, I think you're right. Yeah, that because when he asks him, I don't know who that is.
We saw him. Yeah. And we saw this horrific scene of all the bodies lined up. And he's like, he waved to us like it was,
come on down.
Yeah, and he was like, they were just convinced this guy was completely
But he was
psychotic.
A young person then.
He was
very young.
Yeah, he was obviously probably 20 plus years younger.
Yeah.
So they were all younger when this, or maybe it was 15 years ago. I forget what the point is. It's at least 15 years ago. And they see Kessler
But he said he didn't know who that guy was to his son, to Spike.
And then an older guy tells him that, no, he was actually a doctor, And so what it is you quickly realize that the dad has been lying multiple times to his son about the nature of their situation. He's been lying to his own the way he personally acts, the way he personally feels towards the mother,
But isn't that, I mean, being a father, you can understand what he's doing.
Yeah, I can.
And once the child finds out, you can understand the father's guilt and shame of a kid pushing you away and saying, I can't believe you did all this stuff. You're bad. Until that kid grows up and understands what life means.
Life a little bit more.
Then he's going to come back and go, you know what? I was kind of wrong. I understand what you were doing. I don't condone the fact you cheated on mom, but, as being a parent like that, that, like you said, that affected me in the film. That was a strong thing that was going on in this film.
It was a tough moment for me.
That propelled the film into what Spike was doing later.
Because, my son is 13 right now, So he is essentially the same age as Spike.
Right.
I don't know how long you'd make it in that world. Hey, I don't know how long
I would make it. I mean, are you kidding me?
I'd have probably
running across that causeway. I mean, it would be, you'd never make it. I mean, come on. So it's a movie.
Exactly. But
what other lies are told in there?
Well, I think that we just kind of get like just the idea that.
Do they think that this infection is worldwide?
No,
the people in the town?
No, they don't.
And why aren't people? This is the other thing. Why aren't people dropping supplies down? Why isn't NATO dropping supplies
because
down?
I guess they're just waiting them out.
This is what frustrates people.
Yeah, I think they're just waiting them out.
To let them die?
Yeah. I think they're waiting them out.
Let's starve everybody, including the healthy ones.
Yep, because I think the idea is that, because he even says...
life finds a way, doesn't it?
They know that... I think they know. Here's the thing is I think they know that they are on their own, because at one point he's like, see that boat out there or whatever? He's like, it's probably French. He was looking through binoculars or something. I forget exactly what it was.
Who said that? The father?
The dad or somebody was saying something about the boat out there. It's probably French.
Oh, the French. Yeah, he made a comment about the French.
And basically the idea that the boats are being patrolled. I know at some point they mentioned like people used to try to get out on boats, but they always got sunk or whatever. And
see, that's the law. I can understand why people...
They're not letting anybody out.
Yeah, the logic of what's going on, if you start thinking about it while you're watching the movie and just don't let the movie wash over you, you're done.
Yeah, like if you start...
Because the logic, it makes no sense. Well, including the gas station explosion. I mean, what did they dip under the, that was a weird...
Yeah, but I think the gas station explosion is the idea is that, certain flammable gases rise.
Yeah, but they killed all the zombies in the gas station, but those two walked out on,
Well, they lit them all on fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I'm not, listen, I loved it. I loved it. But you can understand if somebody's watching this and they're going, why wouldn't they just blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
And how is this guy building these towers of skulls and able to stay on the island with nobody
protecting him?
Yeah. But again, the concept of the first movie is whack too. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, I think it
was much better played out with the scene at the beginning with the apes that were in there. I mean, they really.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was great.
I mean, they really set a world. Basically, they set the tone for fast-running zombies and all the other things that came later. I mean,
plus one of the big changes I will say from 28. Not to get too deep into the lore or whatever, the rules. One of the big changes from 28 days later to 28 weeks later, and then on to 28 years later, is the infected in the first one don't go out during the day. They don't go out. And 28 days later, you can walk around during the day.
They did say
pretty
to travel
safely.
during the day, yeah.
Yeah, you can walk around pretty safely during the day because they don't like the light or whatever. But then by the second one, 28 weeks later, we already see zombies running after.
They're in the water, swimming in the water.
Robert Carlyle in the middle of it. Such a good sequence.
That's a good scene of him running with them all chasing him.
Yeah,
I have to admit that was cool.
That was great.
I mean, the movie's kind of silly the way how he got in and was able to kiss his wife with no guards around. I mean, whatever. Yeah. Okay, again, logic.
But but once again, it's like one of those things where it's like he even says like he's the chief facilities guy. Basically, he's basically the director of facilities. So he can get anywhere. So he can go anywhere because he has to be the guy to do anything. Yeah. I mean, he's kind of trying to show off to his kids, like, he was probably a facilities guy at some office building and or school before the whole thing went down, and now he's kind of showing off. See, guys, I can go anywhere.
I know logic. I know you got to throw it out. You gotta, listen, rules in zombie movies and vampire movies. Yeah. They're very flexible.
Yeah, but I do like in the way in this one that they definitely said, "Hey, things have changed."
Well, I like the fact that the virus mutated.
Yeah,
it's mutating like any virus. I mean, you look at your mask, the whole Corona thing. Mm-hmm. This was done after the Corona. And they learned what went on during that and how things mutated, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff that fed into this, and people isolating themselves, trying to stay away from the pack and all that stuff.
And and it's funny too because literally as we're recording this, there is a new strain out of Corona, the Nimbus or whatever they're calling it now,
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it doesn't seem to be any more contagious or deadly than any other one, but it just means that there's another version of it out there that we're going to have to try to figure out how to fight against, Anyway, the point
the film. You gave it a 5.
I gave it a 5 stars because I'm going to tell you this. I found this movie surprisingly powerful and affecting emotionally at the end with Ralph Fiennes and that whole bit, right? Like him and the putting the skull on the very top, taking the baby back, and Ray Fiennes not killing the guy even though he was about to kill him. That's why personally, and I know that I had read that they were talking about making sequels to this. That's why when the Jimmies, or as I like to call them, the tracksuit gang, show up at the end, it felt a
Power
little.
Rangers.
Yeah, that's good. They all had different colors, right?
They were leaping around like Power Rangers.
You're right.
They were flipping around. That's completely tonally different from the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
See, that for me.
As soon as I saw him and I realized it was Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, and it's Jack O'Connell, the guy from Sinners. I don't know if you haven't seen Sinners yet.
I haven't
he plays the main protagonist in that movie. I don't know. He's another one that suddenly pops up in a movie and it's like, holy shit. I can't wait for the sequel based on that. And I think what people are going to get in the sequel is the chaos they wanted in this one.
Probably.
And I think they were setting a world here to have a little bit of a break in between to be able to get to where they want to get to.
Sure.
Where most of the fans say, that's what I wanted. I wanted what I saw in 28 Weeks Later with all the violence and guys busting through doors and all that.
Just a total, absolute chaos.
And I hadn't seen that yet.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a traditional zombie film, like every other zombie film, where this one had a little bit of brains to it.
Yeah.
And whether you think they're hitting you over the head, and they were, showing the iPhone, having Eric come, all that exposition that they do, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I liked Spike. I was rooting for Spike.
For that kid.
Sad to see his mother go.
Yep.
I can't wait to see what happens with the father now, whether he becomes a villain or has a change of heart or whatever.
Or just how it works out.
Or becomes infected. Who knows what's going to happen. Yeah. And I'm ready to take it on and see what.
Yeah, I
didn't give it a 5. I'm like 3.5, 4.
Okay.
Because I do have some. I knew as soon as I saw the pregnant walker in the woods. I mean, in the river when they're all drinking. That she's going to pop up again.
Yeah.
I knew Eric was going to get killed. You just knew that the way they had him hanging out there. He was definitely us. He was like, what are you doing birthing that baby? Shoot her.
Shoot her. Yeah.
And then he gets his head ripped up. Spinal cord.
Literally ripped off.
Like Predator. That Predator thing.
Oh, that's right. I didn't think of that.
So that's why 3.5, 4. But I loved it. And I am glad I finally watched 28 Days Later because I am... And I went down a huge rabbit hole of watching all the making ofs of all of them and get really impressed by Danny Boyle and Alec Garland and just some of the themes that they were going for in all of these. So I'm surprised at the hate. And I wanted to keep positive with this one because I really think it's a good film.
That's great.
Maria loved it. She again, her same complaint is that it's too long. But we enjoyed the experience of seeing it, and so I like to do more of these. I think I'd like to do these kind of single movie 5 things about the movie.
I love it.
Good or bad. I mean, we could if there's a bad movie you want to attack, we can do that too. But that was good. Yeah. So let's do a couple more of these down the road.
I'm looking forward to it. Summertime's here. You want to do Superman next?
I do want to see Superman.
I'm actually super interested in Superman because it's another movie that has unbelievably divided reviews on it. Yes. Some people are saying this is a wonderful return to family superheroes. Some people, myself included, were kind of a little tired of the super grim Zack Snyder Justice League DC hero, whatever. I sat through the Snyder cut. It just.
I'm in the tank for the director. What's his name? James Gunn.
James Gunn, yes.
I'm in the tank for James Gunn. I liked his Suicide Squad he did. The Galaxy stuff is pretty good. Guardians of the Galaxy. Slither he did very early. He's done a lot of early stuff that was fantastic.
And the Peacemaker, the TV show. I mean, he's like the
that's with
you've seen the Peacemaker.
I have seen that.
That's with John Cena.
Every time someone mentions the Peacemaker, I think of that movie with
George Clooney.
Which is good. I like it.
And what's her name?
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
I like that film.
The redhead.
Yeah, the redhead lady who does the AMC commercials.
Exactly.
I forgot. I really love the series Peacemaker. I love that show.
Yeah, season 2's coming soon.
The people that I watch most of the reviews, there's certain ones I always gravitate to. Just raved about it.
Mm-hmm. Some of them say it's like some of the ones I've read have said it's super silly.
Yeah,
and he deserves better. And it's goofy.
Who deserves better? Superman?
Yeah, that it doesn't know where it's going. It's all over the place. And other people are like, no, this is a kind of a great. This is what superhero movies have been missing for the last.
All right. Well, we got to try to see it.
Yes.
And then the next one we'll do Superman. What will be? Do you figure out the 5?
I'll think of some.
Yeah.
I got to see it first.
Yeah.
Because it's all. I mean, all I've seen is like Crypto.
Crypto the dog.
On one hand, I'm like, wow, Crypto is always a dumb idea, right?
Yeah, but that's.
But if you do it right, it could be pretty funny and sweet.
I guess. I guess. Well, we'll see. All right. Well, listen. Have a safe trip.
I will have a safe trip.
I hope it goes well. I hope I didn't infect you.
I'm sure you didn't.
Okay.
I'm sure you didn't.
And then we'll do Superman.
Superman sounds like a good one. We could also hit up another one that's kind of getting split reviews. Is the new Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think we should do that one too.
I'm just saying, like, if we're looking for,
I think that would be easy to find 5 things about that are gonna. Yeah,
I think
just, and I'm just saying that based on the last 3.
Yeah. See, I'll be honest with you. I only saw the first one of the last 3.
I've seen them all.
See, I didn't see the last 2.
And I'm a guy who loves number 3 in the original one.
Oh yeah, the third one.
The original one.
Joe Johnston one is way better than people give it credit for.
I love that one. I love that one.
Way better.
So this will be. It'd be good to get back to this because I remember sitting in the theater watching that first one and going, "Oh my God, what's going
first
on
one
here?"
Blew my
So
mind.
we should do. Okay, so that's good. Superman, Jurassic Park. We'll do a little summer.
Yeah, we'll do a little summer blockbuster fun.
thing. We already did the F1, but we'll do those too. So that'll be good.
Sounds good, man.
All right.
All right.
Toast. Good trip.
As well.